Hi everyone, and welcome back to Planting for Wildlife. Today I'm looking at Verbena Bonariensis, which is a plant that I love, that pollinators love, and that fits beautifully into any garden, from more cottagey planting schemes through to contemporary designs. I've seen it used in so many different ways in the gardens that I visit, and it's also one of the most economical plants you can add to your garden. Verbena Bonariensis is a herbaceous perennial, meaning that it dies all the way back to the ground in winter before re-emerging the next year, and it's native to Brazil and Argentina. It has these narrow, sparsely leafed stems that grow to around 2 meters tall, with flattened heads of tiny lavender-coloured flowers. The flowers emerge in late summer and bloom all the way through to the first frost. I've really been amazed at how long all of the flowers have lasted on the plants I have in this garden, and even after the flowers have gone over, small birds will eat the seeds, so don't cut them back until the next spring when the new shoots are emerging. On the RHS website it says plant in moist, free-draining soil in full sun, but in my experience this is a really drought-resilient plant, and at least in the UK I've never heard of anyone having to water verbena. It should survive the winter in most parts of the UK from -5°C all the way down to -10, or the US equivalent from zone 7 to 11. But if you do live in a colder area, applying a thick layer of mulch before it gets cold is definitely going to help. In those colder areas, it can just be grown as an annual, and it will self-seed prolifically, which brings us to a potential issue with this plant in that it can be quite invasive, and in some parts of the US, it's prohibited to grow it on National Forest System lands. So if you live close to a forest, woodland, or national park, it might be one to avoid. In my own garden, I've had verbena seedlings pop up all over the place, which depending on your point of view, could be a good or a bad thing. They're certainly really easy to identify and pull out, and if you want to keep them, you can just put them up in a gritty compost or just transfer them to a different part of the garden, and if you don't want them, just compost them. One thing I've also learnt is not to place plants in containers right next to verbena, because the compost in the container will pretty much act as a seed tray. From a planting design perspective, verbena has this almost magical see-through effect, meaning you can add height to the front of your border without blocking the view to the plants behind. So there's really no excuse not to give this plant pride of place right at the front of your border, which is where it deserves to be. If you want it to look less see-through and create more of a hedge effect, albeit only in the warmer half of the year, you can plant verbena nice and densely, and this is an effect that I've seen used in front gardens quite a lot. One example that I really liked created a verbena hedge on top of a huge corten steel container, which gave a really nice contemporary vibe. In this garden, I've done something a little bit similar, planting up this narrow container wall with verbena, which has worked really nicely and still never needs watering. It really draws the pollinators into the garden, and apart from buddleia, verbena is probably one of the best plants to attract butterflies into your garden. For planting combinations, verbena works really nicely with ornamental grasses, and especially those with beautiful golden coloured seed heads like Stipa gigantea and Calamagrostis Carl Forster. Especially in autumn, when the sun gets low, you get that beautiful side-lit golden effect that can look really stunning. It also works really nicely with yellow roses, and in my garden I have it planted next to a David Austin rose called Roald Dahl, which also has a really nice tea scent to it. And if you don't have any other plants in your garden, don't worry, verbena will still look absolutely spectacular planted en masse just by itself. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop it a like and subscribe. And until next time, enjoy the wildlife in your garden.